Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now, guys? We are getting ready. No rest for the wicked, no rest for the hoops. Tuesday night, we're at home to Aberdeen, and what is everyone now is now kind of latching on to saying, of course, it's our last midweek game before the split. We've already heard from Alistair Johnson, and we're on my kind of post Axom Monday afternoon walk, and the Brendan Rodgers press conference came out, and I thought, I'm not even going to watch it. I'll just cut my wee walk short. We'll get back, and we'll just do this as quickly as we can from it coming out. And I'll watch it with you. We'll do a proper full-on kind of live reaction for it. And we'll just kind of roll this in a little bit to be in like predicted team score prediction and whatever for the Aberdeen game tomorrow. And towards the end of the show, we'll maybe have a wee bit of banter. We'll maybe discuss the news coming out of Mordor this morning. It's confirmed now from last night. But yeah, good to see you all. Fist bumps on arrival. If you're watching this live, please do hit the like button. Just lets YouTube know it's a good live stream, and they might find some more Jungle Gyms to come and hang out with us. If you haven't done so already, if you're watching this live or after we've been live, please hit the subscribe button. We've just broke through 11,000 subs. We are hurtling our way towards 18,888, and we cannot get there without you guys smashing the subscribe button and supporting the channel. If you turn on the wee bell notification, you'll catch all this stuff as we do it live and loud as well. Pre-game, post-game, and everything else in between. And we're on the hunt at the moment, by the way. Celts are here for a new situation with the podcast. We had a weekly flagship podcast here on the channel. And for the couple of years I've been on the channel, we had Declan McConville, first of all, doing it with me. We then had some kind of guest spots for a while. Declan obviously went on to like journalism and stuff like that. We then had Josh from Celtic Youth in the B Team Twitter account. He's went into journalism now, so we've lost Josh. So we've kind of not got a podcast on the channel right now, and we're looking to change that. If there's anyone you would recommend or want me to reach out to, I speak to, I think, pretty much every Celtic creator, give or take. Everyone that's like a fan channel, certainly, I certainly speak to for the most part. So, yeah, I'm always open to suggestion, always open to ideas. If you're watching this after we're live, that would be a great thing to smash into the comment section. But as a bunch of you are joining us, it's good to see you all, of course, as we start the week off, a wee Monday afternoon. We've dissected the weekend. We've kind of chewed over the remains that was the, let me go and get the right tab, sorry, there we go. The Hibs match at the weekend, and we're now firmly focusing on the Aberdeen game and, finishing off the domestic treble that we set off for. And I think we can only really discuss that with having our little kind of piece on Mordor as we get to the end of the show as well. But fist bumps to you all. If any are watching this for the first time, we'd just like to watch. As you can see, I got 9 seconds into it, and then I closed off, and I was like, no. Back to base, and let's listen to this with all the subscribers on the channel as we preview. We focus on Celtic, focus on business first of all, but we do have some headlines to talk about as well. So it should be a fun one today. I don't know how long it'll be on for, but again, fist bumps to everyone. Thanks to everyone that's joining us live or after we're live. It does mean a lot, and the support for the channel is greatly appreciated.
Start on Saturday's game. Have you had time to look at it and what we've spoken to the players about since the match going forward?
Listen, we analyse the game like we do every game. I still feel that we should have had something from the game, especially second half. First half, we didn't make a good start. But I didn't overthink it either, because the players have been absolutely fantastic for me this season. The consistency and the level that we've shown over many months has been at a really high level. And we didn't make a good start in the game, which is always something that you want to do. We didn't quite do it. Disappointing first half, made a great reaction second half. Should have had an equaliser, which could have given us momentum even to go and win the game. So, but it didn't happen, and we just have to move on from that and look to our next game now.
He does make a good point, and I think that was a lot of the stuff I've seen in some of the comments from you guys, particularly Celtic fans that are like, I don't know what the word would be, but they're just like, hey, we've only lost, like, we'd never lose, calm down kind of thing. And yeah, like, I get that. And I think Rodgers is definitely should be one of the people that takes that position on it. Like, if you zoom out, there was no need to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater after that game. It was a terrible start, a lot of poor performances, but by and large, it's water off a duck's back, really, isn't it? But here on the channel, we can't not discuss what we see and where we think improvements can be made.
Just on the goal that didn't stand, have you spoken to Willie Collum at all this morning? Have you spoken to anyone about seeing footage, why the decision was overturned?
No, I don't think there's any more footage on it. I think the club go through the process. We don't make statements and all sorts of things. We just go through
Let's wind that back again. 118, maybe like 1 out of 10, let's say.
go through the process. We don't make statements and do all sorts of things. We just go through the procedure and the process, which is the club, to speak to the SFA and just get a feeling of what they think. Obviously, we haven't had anything back yet. My feeling is still the same, having watching it and seeing the various images. And there are a couple of images that you see where the illusion is that it's out, but then there's others that will look, it's clearly in. And I seen one image of one right on the actual goal line, which was an incredible shot. Really.
Oh, right. So that tweet is probably, it could be any number one of them. We could be on to finding Brendan's burner. We know he's seen the Hibs fan vlogger images somehow, somewhere.
So, and that looked in. So it's more the process, really. I think I was disappointed for the guys in the game. Steve and the referee and the linesman, because they actually got it correct in the game, and I didn't feel that then they should have been overruled on that without a definitive answer, which is what I said at the time.
Do you think that it's something that Scottish football should be looking to implement, Brendan? Is that at the top of the to-do list? Should we be getting goal line technology cameras along the line so we get these decisions right in the future, or are there more pressing concerns, you think?
Well, listen, it's all about what you can afford. I suppose within the league, there may be other priorities. Certainly, if within the game, if it's something that the game can afford, then to be able to do, then of course, then you wouldn't have scenarios. You would have scenarios, but you would have the clarity that you would get with the goal line technology.
And then obviously big news across the country, Rangers manager obviously departing. What's your thoughts on that? I know it's not.
I'm quite happy with everything Brendan said there. There's not really much else to say about it. And I'm glad, hopefully the journals move on. It's only a 9-minute press conference, so this segment of the show might not be too long. Normally these press conferences recently have been like quite close to the 20-minute mark, so quite punchy on this one. And Brendan as well, I wanted to say earlier, notably in a shirt, so no training for Brendan today. He's not been on the grass or anything like that. Meetings and presentations, maybe, all that kind of jazz. Guys, there's about 30-40 of you on YouTube. There's a bunch of you watching on Facebook as well. No matter where you're watching the show, if you could hit the like button, it just helps us find more Jungle Gyms to come and hang out with us and get the party going in the live chat. So please, if you do enjoy the show, hit the like button. It really does a lot to help us out.
Another manager in Scotland going, I guess. How do you see it?
Well, like it is for any manager, I'm always disappointed when a manager loses his job, and obviously Philippe been in there for the period of time that he has.
Can I just say on this cliche that every manager goes through, like as if it's like, like whenever there's a tree that falls in the rainforest, I shed a tear kind of vibes, like whenever a manager anywhere loses their job, it makes me so sad, like, come on, man. Save us, give us peace.
Disappointed for him as a coach. I think we all know the conditions up here. You have to be winning and show that consistency to win. But always sad when another manager loses his job. Philippe has shown previous to coming into to Rangers that he's a very good manager. He's won titles. He's not just a good coach; he's a winning coach, and has won. So, but like I say, we know the conditions up here. There's relentless pressure on you to win at Celtic and Rangers. Expectation is there, and that doesn't stop on a daily basis. So you have to then come out and be a consistent winner.
It's obviously a symbiotic relationship. We talk about pressure in Glasgow. If one's up, the other one isn't up, and that's the way it is, isn't it? But is it a kind of measure of the consistency and high level you guys have shown over this?
Is that the case? But if one's up, one has to be down. I don't really buy into that. I don't think it's that symbiotic. Like, there's been plenty of times where there's been unrest with both managers. Like, I remember one of my favourite derbies I went to. I think it was an Old Firm. It must have been an Old Firm. It was a Wednesday night cup replay, and it was the only Celtic Rangers game I've been to under the floodlights at Paradise, and it was a shit game. We won 1-0. Mark Wilson scored, and it was the one quite famously with the bust up on the touchline between McCoist and Lennon at full time. At that point, we had Neil Lennon, which I know, like, and maybe this is something we could maybe even tie into Barry Ferguson. We'll chat about that later, of course, but I don't think Neil Lennon was like everyone was pure buzzing for him to be manager. And at that point, they'd recalled Walter Smith again with Alan McCoist essentially doing the job, for death till he parted with the club, and even from the grave for a minute or two. So, like, even that isn't that long ago, and I don't think either one of them, both can be down. And then if I think all the way back to like Alex McLeish and Martin O'Neill and Dick Advocat and Martin O'Neill and whatever, like they can both be up. So I don't totally buy into that.
This period, that pressure has gone.
Well, yeah, and I think it's also how we've dealt with the pressure. I think that was that's been key to it. I think we didn't get off to the best of starts. Last season when I came in, certainly in terms of consistency and performance level. I think when Philippe came in, obviously they had that bounce and had a really good run. But then once we started to find our feet and get our rhythm, and then I think how we dealt with pressure, we dealt with it really, really well. And from that moment, we've continued.
I did say it was a rubbish game. It was like 1-0. It wasn't a spectacle or anything, but it was one of my favourite games because the atmosphere. It was like playing them in Europe. It was under the floodlights. It was midweek. It was the temperature was fucking something else, man. That's the bust up on the touchline didn't surprise me being in the stadium that's where it got to. Like it was. I've not got a great memory for a lot of this stuff. It's part of the reason I do video-based stuff. So I like to make sure I don't forget memorable matches I go to, memorable moments and stuff like that. But that game I'll always remember. It was just like top. And I've been to a fair amount of derbies, maybe just about over half a dozen, maybe at this point. Some great chat in here as well. Of course, we are all Neil Lennon. How could I forget? But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. And Brendan's talking about the pressure on him to keep the standards where they are.
Continue to sort of grow and improve. So it's a great credit to the players and how they've coped with that and how they've consistently performed.
You came up against Philippe and his teams on a number of occasions during this time here. How did you find him? Did you have much interaction with him? Do you have much interaction with your other Old Firm managers?
You don't really know that. That's the honest answer. I think that you actually play enough times. You come up against each other quite a lot, of course, but in terms of the interaction isn't so much. But like I say, I've seen his work outside of Rangers as well, and you're going to need to look at that in his CV to show that Rangers employed a very good manager, and that's what they felt at the time, and that's why they gave him the job.
Yeah. In terms of you guys, obviously, 11 games to go in the league. Is that a case of focusing on your own? You have done all season, I guess, but obviously we see events elsewhere taking kind of headlines and all that stuff. But is it just going about business as usual and keep the head down to the finishing line? Yeah.
I think it's the professionalism and the focus, which is very important. We obviously need to bounce back from
that. This is the point where when we do these shows, we're hoping someone's going to ask about the team. The gossip, the headlines are now done. Can we ask about the team?
The weekend. But the weekend was another opportunity for us to show that you're not quite on it. And then teams can hurt you. But it's also a great measure of how focused and professional the team have been. That we've had very few slip-ups over the course of the season. So, but we did it the weekend. We're hungry to respond now tomorrow evening, and like you say, it's at this time of the season where you really got to narrow in your focus into your performance, into your recovery, into your preparation, and just focus on the next game.
What's the squad for tomorrow?
Same as the weekend. They're all in a good place. James he's still a bit away from joining the squad, but he's out on the field, but same squad.
How's Paolo looking? From the ankle, it's still another 3-4 weeks, Brendan.
Yeah, it'd still be a wee bit of time away. We give him.
Mate, he just told you it's the same squad. Fair enough, he didn't tell us about Bernardo, but What are you thinking off the back of losing to Hibs? There's about 5 players you could ask him about. Come on, there's only 2 minutes left. Please, someone ask a question about the team. Right, we've got the squad report. Cool. Let's get the team.
Give him a little bit of time off. He's obviously back in now, so yeah, he's still a bit of time away.
What do you expect from tomorrow night's game?
Expect a tough game. Celtic Aberdeen they're always good games. We've obviously played well in them this season. Jimmy team got off to a brilliant start, and then the highs and lows of football for a difficult period.
I don't mind the previewing of Aberdeen, by the way. That's fair game. Fair enough, right?
But he's been able to look and see, because obviously, again, that early 5-6 months in the building, he'll be looking at the internal culture of the club and the training ground and how that looks, and then he's been able to freshen that up in January and bring in his sort of profile of players that can make his system maybe work even better. So they picked up in the last few games. So I expect a really tough game, and that's what we've prepared for.
The home league game against Aberdeen is the only goals at Parkhead you've conceded in the league all season. That's a record must take a lot of pride in. Yes,
yeah. I think pressing for me is everything. That's the start point, and that's where everything else comes from. That. So our ability to press the game from the top of the field is key in our work, and that defensive record is a great credit to the team. You know, people will look at the back four and goalkeeper naturally, of course, because they are those last points of our defence as such. But our pressing and defensive mentality, that is the foundation for us to play the football that we want to play. And obviously at home on that day we conceded two disappointing goals, but other than that I can't really complain.
I don't know if we rank. What we do, Matt, should we start doing press conference rankings? I don't know. It was all right, wasn't it? Like fair. You know, asking, what you expected from the game tomorrow is totally fair, right? I don't mind that. Some lovely comments saying that's why fan media should be there, and I take that as a compliment. And I thank you for that support, of course. There is a bunch of you now joining us live on YouTube. We've kind of previewed the press conference from Brendan. I'm going to have a wee look at what we expect the team to be, the predicted 11 for Celtic against Aberdeen this midweek, because you don't need to wind the clock too far back when you might have looked at this game on the calendar and thought this would be top of the table clash, first versus second, in the closest thing to a title race that we would have thought we would see this year. I wouldn't say anyone's given us a title race, which is probably on par with what a lot of Celtic fans would have really expected in the fullness of time to happen in any case. I'm just prepping the board now, guys. I must apologise, right, because Craig, who runs everything here at Celtic Star here, deserves a huge shout out for all the work that's getting done here and the growth that everything's happening here. Great in terms of everything. It's news, posts, everything, that gets done with the channel. So huge shout out to Craig if he's here, if he's live and loud. But he's actually sorted out some more software for us, which should be nicer looking than the software we have been using, and I have just not carved out the time yet to fire it up and get up to speed with it. Now, I found it quite interesting how Rodgers termed it as the same squad as the weekend, and it makes me borderline not want to put Yang into the fray for a few reasons, but we'll get onto that in a wee second. I'll catch up with you guys in the live chat as well, see what your thoughts and feelings are on coming into this game, the team in general, off the back of the Hibs game, coming into this game. I did a preview, a breakdown, a reaction, an analysis on the game yesterday. We went live on a Sunday, so feel free to check that out as well if you want to catch analysis, thoughts and feelings, because there was quite a lot to, and a loss is it's kind of good to do that content in the same way consistently, because a lot of the stuff we highlight, even in games that we win, are really at the fore in the few games that we do lose. Sure, when we're not picking up maximum points in Europe, and if it's like a one-off thing, it can feel a little bit like overkill sometimes, like some of the critique that comes to the squad, some elements of the style of play, maybe one or two other bits and bobs, but that's just what we talk about here on the channel, and no one should take it so seriously that they think it's meltdown stations here and we're losing our mind about it and we're complaining or whatever. But this is the squad that we've got coming into this. Now, we're going to be at home, which is a massive thing. And I was really itching for someone to ask about the team because, like, especially when he's talking about defensively and the defence being the last line of defence, is some of those comments in defence of Taylor and Trusty? I'm now starting to think because really off the back of Trusty's performance in the last game and just the way the seasons went, if we look at the play patterns for Scales and Trusty, they've both had like spurts of like 5 to 8 games or so. And really on form and everything else. If you remember the Dundee game, which wasn't too long ago, I would easily take Scales out for. I could easily see Scales coming in for Trusty in this match in the same way that I think a lot of people can see Schlupdog coming in for Taylor in at left back. And this is the way I was feeling coming into the Aberdeen game tomorrow. It's how we'd probably line up in defence off the back of quick turnaround of matches, form, and form, essentially, overriding it all. But listening to those comments there in the press conference, it does make me think that, is he trying to take a little bit of heat off them? Is he trying to take a little bit of responsibility off them? I don't know. We never get better questions from the journals there to really press into his thoughts on the defence, the performance. It was just more a case of, what did you think about the goals that were conceded? Trusty was going on about being the best defender on Earth and Pressing a couple of months ago. Who was going on about Trusty doing that? Now, actually, on that note, because Rodgers, you're right for bringing that up, Ryan the boy, because when Trusty does get caught out for that first goal, he's up here in like no man's land, and he is actually pressing the game, and that's something that if you did see Scales doing it, it would look a bit uncomfortable. It would maybe cause a sharp intake of breath from everyone when the ball goes by him. Then at that point, and then in recovery, that's when he can kind of look like subpar, but I don't think Scales gets himself into bother in that way. So it's maybe a style thing that you're actually touching on there, which isn't really highlighted enough in terms of Trusty being like a pressing centre back, if that's such a thing. But yeah, good point. Ralston McLaughlin, I'm not too sure. I think Alistair Johnson plays all the time. He was rested recently enough where at home to Aberdeen, I don't think is a game for Ralston at all. If this was like at home to Ross County, St Johnstone, something like that, different story. But at home to Aberdeen, I don't think there's any question. Which again, maybe then adds into not changing the defence up too much, like bringing in Scales and Schlupp. Is that too much of a change? Because there's probably not going to be too much change elsewhere in the team because it is the same squad as Rodgers has just confirmed. We've seen very little rotation for the most part. It's just been kind of like when necessary or for needs must kind of thing. Taylor should be engaging at that part of the pitch. Yeah, I think so I'm undecided on the Taylor. I think Taylor is very much more likely because Schlupp started the Bayern Munich match last Tuesday as well. Memory, was that a Tuesday? I'm sure it was. Maybe it was Wednesday. I'm losing my mind. But no, it must have been. I'm sure it was a Tuesday. Yeah. So if you're playing the midweek weekend rotation game there, like Schlupp could just come back in again. He played last Tuesday, plays this Tuesday kind of style. So I could see that happening enough. I think like Carter Vickers and AJ are really nailed on this one. And McLaughlin, your pictures apparently about her. But I can't quite read it, but it's definitely a joke at James Tavernier. He's good. Oh, I can't see it, but I'm sure it's about her. I think it's a tweet. It's probably went viral. I've probably caught it somewhere already. And yeah, we've not even really got to the Aberdeen team. I'll just check my usual little site source and we'll see if there's a projected lineup for them. We can add this in. I think we know what we're going to get out of Jimmy Teelan's team. They've been kind of the same all season. Yeah, we do. We've got an Aberdeen projected team. We can splice across this as well. Once we finish with the Celtic team here. Looks a little bit different to last time we've played them. A few more signings are coming in to be probably in the starting 11. Yeah, very kind of Scandinavian vibes on them. Tall, physical, decent with the ball on the deck kind of thing. And I think like Scales, again, Rodgers does like McKeown playing any team against Dundee. So Scales against former team, which is quite unrecognisable. He probably played with very few of these players, if any. It's maybe not as much of a thing. Yeah, I seen that. I did see that. So yeah, I'm rather undecided with the centre back thing. I think all things being equal, form and everything, like Scales really should be coming back in for this one, as well as if we just look at the patterns. I say this is always just a little bit clumsy for showing different screens, but if you bear with me a second, I will flip this around and I'll show you what I was looking at. think this was last night in preparation for the midweek game week, so I need to get some teams sorted. But if you look at Scales' season here, it's been a wee bit of in and out, rotating here. When it was between him and Trusty and him and Vickers and Trusty, that kind of period back here. But then since then, it's been kind of this little stretch. And it's a bit more obvious when you look at Trusty, because Scales has kind of been a wee bit more ever-present for when Vickers was out. So if you remember, there was a time where like Trusty did seem to be behind Scales in the pecking order. And like you can see here, he doesn't play for like 4 games, 5 games, essentially. For roundabout, there might have been a cup match in here as well, I forget, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that kind of next kind of passing of the guard thing. So if we look at Scales, his like last little bit kind of looks like that as well, doesn't it? It does look like Trusty's overall been favoured, which is why I'm undecided on it, or why I can't really make my mind up. But I think Scales has got like a solid chance of getting in. But I've said that about 4 times this season, and it's not happened. Rodgers has been very consistent with Trusty and Vickers over this period where we've had Champions League football especially, but maybe now with Champions League football gone, that's just less of a thing, you know. Trusty's been very weak in the duels, and that is like Scales' number one quality, is how powerful he is 1v1. The midfield is going to be McGregor at the base, and it's going to be a matter of Engel started the last game, so does Hatate start this one with McKeown, or does he say, McKeown, you're just going back to the bench and you guys are just going to have to dig in deep and go from the start? That's the main question mark here. I can't see it being Hatate from the bench again, and McGregor's not going to come on from the bench. So it's a case of, does Engels or McKeown start? If we look at Engels, I think Engels has had like a prolonged period of starting now, which is like a good kind of like chapter in his development this season, because he was kind of in and out the team for a few games in a row. And yeah, we'll just switch screens again. I just wish the system was a wee bit more smooth in doing it, but there you go. So as we can see, like if we kind of scroll back, it's always like there's a little period of starts here back in that international window, but also it's back in the international window, so a bit of a different thing going on. But then beyond that, like we get 2 starts in a row, we get 3 starts in a row, 2 starts, and then we're on 2 starts again. This doesn't include cup games, sadly. This is only Champions League and League, but for the most part, that's the majority of the fixtures, obviously. So I wouldn't be surprised if this same pattern kind of emerged, and we've seen, you know, there is the room there for 3 games in a week, of course. I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen Engels go to the bench off the back of that, personally, because it is the only thing that stops it again for me, but it is Aberdeen, who actually I've not looked at the table in preparation for this, so give me a wee second and I'll go backwards to go forwards. So all it is about the points distance, but we're actually, yeah, they're third. Yeah, just double checking. So they're in third, they're not in second, but they're still kind of like, they used to be second, you know. It used to be like, oh, could Aberdeen give us a challenge this season? And off the back of the Hibs game, the last thing Brendan wants after losing a match is to lose another one. Who is covering for O'Bernardo? Now, maybe one thing that could be kind of interesting to peek at here, I'm going to change screen again before I think I'm going to be decided on it, is going to be Engels over McKeown in midfield, right? But if we look at the Hibs game, this was the squad that we had. Rodgers said it will be the same squad. So we have Hatate, Schlupp, and Jota on the bench. We've just put 2 of them into start. So it's going to be Taylor and McKeown, we think, on the bench here. We'll talk about forwards, Scales. Of course, we've already spoke on Yang, Ralston, Sinisalo, Johnny Quinny, and Jude Bonner. Now Jude Bonner is like a midfielder who's done very well for the B team. We've covered them a few times in the Champions League over the last couple of years. And this year he was, like, the first game he did quite well in, but me watching it, he didn't pass the eye test. I thought he was quite poor, but watching the highlights back, and then since I've seen him in subsequent matches, he's actually been really impressive for me. So good to see he's getting at least a sniff. And he's a guy that could, like, he would do the Engels job if he got minutes. He's that kind of guy. Kind of like he kind of gave me, him and Turley in different ways have gave me kind of Matt O'Reilly vibes, in terms of got that kind of like big guy, kind of slow jog across the pitch, but they're not necessarily that slow, quite strong, makes a nice pass. But yeah, no, I think this will be the midfield. And then when we come to the front line, like, Yang will be on the bench, of course. And with Brendan talking about in that press conference that Dyson, the press is the main thing, I got mad flashbacks to the last time I got to interview Brendan Rodgers at a press conference, and I asked him about, because Kyogo was playing so well on the left, like, hey, why don't we just keep Kyogo on the left and play Dyson through the middle and see how good that could work as a thing? And Brendan really stressed that the Kyogo mould, the profile, is his apex version of a forward. And listening to that press conference there just now makes me think it could be Dyson time on this one. This could be the way he lines up to go and slaughter Aberdeen, to go and absolutely smash them. I do think that would be harsh on Ida. I actually kind of expect Ida to start, but those comments and that little flashback I had listening to that makes me think it's Dyson's job in this game at home to Aberdeen as well. Maybe away, Brendan might consider still playing Ida, and he might just consider this as a rotation. Again, similar to what we said about left back, with Dyson starting in the front three last Tuesday, he does that this Tuesday, and he can maybe keep Ida like from being totally butthurt about it until the weekend. And then at the weekend, who are we playing? Celtic fixtures. We are away to St Mirren. So again, that'd be a great game to start Ida in before we then have Hibs the following week at home in the Cup. I don't know about that. Like, we're on this channel, we've been chatting about it since he signed, because back, for as long as we've been doing content here, me, McBride Ace, Mark Patrick Rare, Etienne 23, the kind of OG Sorare supporters crew that we've got here have all been kind of following this since Yokohama and all the rest of it. So maybe a little bit, but I think like I'm not telling anyone that's not secret information, is it? He's still to score this season. He needs to get, who's this? Dane Murray back on the bench, maybe? No Forrest. McLaughlin P, that was confirmed in the press conference. Still, he's a little bit away. But yeah, I think ultimately this will be the team that goes out. Now, I had a big prediction for the Hibs game. I said we would win that 5-0, and we didn't. I get the starting 11 right enough, but so I can maybe distance myself from the prediction if I've not got the team right. On the basis that this team starts, I think like Aberdeen, we're not going to beat them 5-0 or anything like that. What the next thing for us to do would be is to put their squad on top of this now, okay? So I'm going to show you their projected team, and then I'll put the dots on the board, and we'll chat about it with the dots for a wee minute, and then we'll chat about Mordor, and we'll get out of here. But yeah, they've got Mitov back in goals, our number one goalkeeper, who had a couple of little injuries that brought Celtic Academy player Duhan into the net here. This guy, Jensen, is there more than one Jensen? Yeah, they signed this guy from Finland or something like that, or Sweden. And it's a league that it's quite hard to get good data for, to see like how good some of these players are. Like Tobers came in from Switzerland. I think his data is okay. Noster is a new name on me. I'm not too sure where he came from particularly. And then McKenzie, again, whenever we've played against him, he's been pretty decent. That's a really solid looking defence. Like the Tobers guy is an international. And I think from what I've seen already, the guy Jensen that didn't have much data, he came in with like some aplomb from like guys that watch that league that I have seen. I'm just going to put Sivert for this guy, Sivert Nielsen. Or maybe I can put the whole thing in because it's quite... No. I'm just going to put Sivert. Or maybe I should put Nielsen, actually. So, like, this Aberdeen team will be quite a stern test. And defensively, like, we've not looked that amazing at cutting teams open because of how we build our midfield. Palaversa in the engine room, by the way, this is a guy I've been a fan of for a while. Quite happy to see him in Scottish football. I think he's been doing okay. Former CFG Man City football group, like prodigy, that was just loaned out everywhere and didn't really end up making it anywhere. But he's a guy that had dead balls and smashing something from the edge of the box can be handy. Kiskinen has been decent. And by the way, see, when we solve the Yang problem, I wouldn't mind signing somebody like Kiskinen to be the Yang of the squad. You know, you buy a guy that's maybe breaking through another team in the league that isn't going to be like demanding minutes, but we could turn into somebody good. Sort of thing. And then Nisbet up front, Daba, Okles, Habib Gay, who was good earlier in this season and then got injured or something. But if we look at how the teams would shape up then and match up, I think, yeah, that kind of helps me it does make the centre forward thing a bit tougher. But I think against Kiskinen, like Taylor could probably do a good job against him, but I just think Schlupp will just have his number, no problem at all. Against the likes of Nisbet, again, with Trusty being quite weak, it does kind of paint itself into scales again, doesn't it? This Okles I've not seen or know enough about. And otherwise, yeah, like I think this is probably the way you would want to go, playing into channels, because Aberdeen will fancy themselves to get up the pitch a bit. And if they do get up the pitch a bit, that maybe helps starting Dyson be more of an effective move rather than being worried about being in their box, their big guys at the back and trying to play Ida. Whereas you get Ida for later on. So that'll be interesting to see how that kind of shapes up. We know what we're going to get from them. If we remember the first game at Celtic Park this season, they really ran us close. They were good value for money, if that's the expression for it. And I think Rodgers will want that kind of Celtic team to go out again. Ida was shocking at the weekend. Yeah, I just think I said on Axom earlier today, I just think he struggled, and maybe he struggles with competition because Dyson's now a really credible threat. And when he hit that little purple patch post Kyogo, he was the guy. He was centre forward, and he was going to start all those matches, and he could be comfortable. And yeah, MT Celts on that same sentiment is why I do think Ida could still start quite easily, because starting Ida gives you a very good option from the bench no matter what you do. So I am totally with you on that sentiment. But maybe Ida's a good option from the bench in this game. If they start to retreat, if they've got something to protect, you then get Ida to bring on later. So I'm with you there on that sentiment, MT Celts. I think we're onto a good one there. Are there any more Dysons we can sign in Japan? There's maybe one or two. I've not really been following the J League. It's just kicked off. I've not really been following the J League for the last 2 or 3 seasons, to be honest with you. Like the guys that we got, where there was a great generation of guys that all came through. I still follow some of them. A lot of them are in Belgium, and a few of them are in England. Guys like Matoma, Kamada, Koki Saito at QPR, 1 or 2 others. And I'm not sure they've quite got that crop kind of around there now. It's 1 or 2 guys. Mitsuta had some promise. I think he's had an injury or 2, but it makes you maybe want to just keep your distance or whatever. But again, in Mitov, we're going to have another good goalkeeper to come up against. So chance creation, the volume of shots here is important. And similar to what I said, what I used to beat Kyogo over the head with all the time, in terms of just making sure we hit the back of the net, Jota and Ida were really guilty of that at the weekend. And in games like this against Bayern Munich, when you're not winning, the team needs to score first before you're scoring. That's the way you think of it. And we may not get too many open net chances. Aberdeen could be very, very difficult to break down. And their goalkeeper is top 3 in the league, top 4 in the league, I think is quite an easy point to make. When on form, I don't think there's much of an argument in that. And like we've seen before, like they can hurt us. So it's definitely not a game I think Rodgers takes lightly. I don't think any rotations come into it lightly. I think he will be playing this game to win it. I don't think he'll want to lose 2 games in a row at all. And yeah, I think it'll be Bayern Munich mode, hopefully, in terms of the team, the kind of switch around. We should look seriously at the Asian market for a few players. I think there's definitely centre forward potential out there. I'll tell you what, guys, I'll do a wee recce on it, and we'll maybe talk about it in a week or 2. But I'll get some proper digging on the go and see if there's any J League we can maybe look to tap into. And I do stop myself from getting high and mighty on the scouting thing for how bad Celtic have been. Because see, guys like Engels and Kuhn, they were nowhere near my radar. And they should have been. They could have been. Is probably the better way of putting it. And somehow they found them, and somehow they've been decent. So it's just one of those ones sometimes where there is more than is publicly available on a lot of these guys. There is websites you can pay for, of course. I have some extra detail that clubs professionally do use, but a lot of clubs use their own data sets and then have a hybrid, an aggregate of lots of different premium services. So it's hard to really know the complete picture of what they value, what they're looking at, and that kind of stuff. So I do stop short of really getting on a high horse with it, but we'll certainly have a look at Asia and see if there's anything we can bring out. But yeah, Ryan the boy, I'm with you there. Left back, centre midfield, and striker. They're my 3 positions we need to get something for. But I think we beat Aberdeen in this game, and I think I don't think there's a lot of goals in it. I think the only thing that might make it a bit more fiery and maybe high action, high goal volume is that it's midweek under the floodlights, and this is a big domestic match. But my guts tell me we win this 2-0, 2-1, something like that. I'm going to go with 2-0 because I love a clean sheet for Celtic. We've been doing great with it, and I think although they are quite powerful, I think Schmeichel was going to be raging. He's not had a clean sheet in a while, and I can see us getting an important one. I think Balikwisha is probably still on the radar, but his injury record makes him quite difficult to really push the boat out for. I think if Celtic could get Balikwisha for £2 million, they'll do it. But it will be that sort of deal thereafter with his injury record now. I don't think it'll be, okay, what's the asking price and can we do a deal? Can we negotiate? I think they'll want to loan him, pay next to nothing up front, have an easy release clause on it. And Antwerp might not be totally up for getting bent over on the deal yet. Don't know what his contractual situation is, but yeah, that's the way I kind of see that. So I guess the only thing that's kind of left to touch on is the news we've had from, I don't even know what to put on screen. I don't want it just to be me sitting here, but We've had news. Somebody said it earlier. They've hired the sports scene panel. Can we maybe jump onto Twitter and just put just like some sort of graphic? Rangers manager is one of the top. I put Rangers in, manager's the next word that comes along with it. And can we do a wee share screen? Yeah. Oh, there we go. So this is the news. There we go. Barry Ferguson has been appointed interim Rangers manager following Philippe Clement's departure. Apparently, he's only accepting like half of his payout, and it's just like that's all he was ever going to get, wasn't it? With Neil McCann, Billy Dodds, Alan McGregor assisting the former captain. So I don't know what to think about it. There's a lot of Celtic fans ready to laugh at this and say it's going to be a failure. Like this could either be like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ryan Giggs, kind of. It could be bad. Like it could go quite bad, or it could be like a Neil Lennon kind of moment, like we mentioned earlier in the stream. You know, like it's a weird one. I think like with that kind of backroom staff, like Billy Dodds, like I don't mind listening to Billy Dodds talk about football, if I can be honest. Like when I did coaching courses and stuff like that, I don't know if I'm getting muddled up maybe with Billy Davies. There's always a few of them I get muddled up in terms of who actually I've seen at a thing and then who I've like listening to. But one or two, like they talk sense when it comes to football, and they've obviously got their own biases and all that. But Neil McCann's quite good at his analysis from what I can see on Sports Scene, as well as maybe one or two of the other ones. And I guess that's where the Sports Scene jokes come in quite quickly, right? But they're doing so bad. It's not hard to imagine they do better, is it? You know, so it's one of those ones. And the only thing that we've really got to worry about is really just the cup games. Is can he get an extra 5-10% out of them? Because that Diddy they've just sacked led them to a victory over us in his last outing, and before that, his record in the derby was obviously terrible. So it's one of those ones where, like, although we're still going to win the league and get cups and all the rest of it, you don't want to lose any games against them, and especially if this wee dick's on the sideline. You just don't want to give them any moment. You just don't want to give them any joy on it, you know. Yeah, exactly, Pat, man. I think that's kind of it where, like, the Derek McInnes effect, you know, where they will surely make sure that they just beat the teams that they should beat, you know, and you know, like they can't get worse. Like, so I'm not going to be too quick to laugh at this because there might not be as much to laugh about. Now, there might still be stuff to laugh at, but I wouldn't rule out the laughter ending for the season. Like they might just not lose again now, and then we beat them, and maybe they've been valiant in their efforts or something. So yeah, maybe a wee bit sad that maybe the laughter might end now for the season, but not in the sense that like, oh, we better be careful, or they're a threat now or anything like that. Far from it, but just like, yeah, they might just be sensible again, where nothing too dramatic happens. But you never know. Honestly, Rangers have been so surprising over the years with how comical it's been. Just when you think that it couldn't get any funnier, it does. Is always the top thought I've got with Rangers over the last like 10 years. And this, when you think it couldn't get funnier, it does. That might just be about to happen, you know. March the 16th is the next derby, which is the day before St. Patrick's Day, which is normally a good omen. So look forward to that. But yeah, like maybe the laughter is going to end for the season is my main kind of takeaway on this. I don't see them doing any worse. They're not going to be involved in transfers or anything like that. It's going to be just about getting on the training pitch and head everything away for corners and clear your lines and don't let your man away, hold the shirt and don't worry about the refs, they're on your side, and you know, whatever the base mantra is, you know, because when I mentioned like Solskjaer and Ryan Giggs, like we've heard it for so long with like Man United of like, oh, 4-4-2 and the wingers and strikers that score, whatever they say behind closed doors, you know, like that's all they're going to be coming out with again. And then all the usual, like, clear your lines, don't make any mistakes, take your chances when they come, make sure to get fouled in the box, the ref will give you a penalty. Whatever their kind of like, you know, whatever their football idea is what he'll bring back into it. And players like really need led. You know, a big part of it is, and a lot of ex-players and Barry Ferguson's kind of profile do quite well at management in certain clubs. Like I do think Neil Lennon is like not a bad comparison for Barry Ferguson in a lot of ways here. So again, I wouldn't be too quick to totally laugh this into a joke position in a few different ways. But yeah, that's kind of all I've got to say on that. But at least we covered it. We mentioned it. And we move on. The game's against Aberdeen tomorrow. I'm going with 2-0 to Celtic. And Daizen Maeda is the guy in form at the moment, so I think he's going to be the man taking the headlines, getting the man of the match shouts, of course, as well. And yeah, let me know for you guys once the show ends. If we're live, you're in the live chat, but when the show ends, the comment section opens. So in the comment section is where you leave your receipts on the internet, so you can say you called the game, you knew it was going to happen. I want to see score predictions. I want to see man of the match shouts, first goal scorer, whatever you're into. Feel free to get those receipts in the comment section, of course, guys. If you have enjoyed the show, please do like and subscribe for more content like this, of course. And yeah, I guess I'll see you post-match. We'll break down the game and we'll look ahead to everything else that's going on. Hail, hail, and Mon the Hoops.